Tapestry of Life. I'm Dr. Pascal Scoles, Professor of Behavioral Health and Human Services at Community College of Philadelphia. Today's topic is women in recovery. Many women who use drugs have faced serious challenges to their well-being. Research indicates that up to 70% of women who are drug users report histories of physical and sexual abuse. Data also indicates that women are far more likely than men to report a parental history of alcohol and drug abuse. Often, women who use drugs have low self-esteem, little self-confidence, and may feel powerless in relationships. Of women who use drugs, about half are in their childbearing age of between 15 to 44. Men and women, as you know, men and women metabolize alcohol differently. A small amount of concentration of alcohol can produce intoxication in women, even when compared to men of comparable body size and weight. There are many different issues that surround women in recovery. I'd like to welcome my guest, Rick Ford, as my co-host, has been with me for many, many different shows. Also, Kathy Wellbank, who is the director of Interim House, and Thelma Yancey, who is a peer specialist. Let me start by saying this. I've often loved Interim House. I've known Interim House for many, many years, and I remember when Interim House first started in 1971, I think at the time.
Right.
I was on the Mayor's Commission at the time, and so you have a wonderfully long history, and I'd like you to kind of maybe tell us a little bit about what Interim House is.
Oh, sure. Interim House is, as you know, the first woman-specific program. It was founded in 1971, and it's evolved over the years. We're the oldest program for women only, not only in Pennsylvania, but on the East Coast. And we provide a holistic approach to treatment. We address the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of each woman. We're the only program that provides a continuum of care. We serve 25 women in our residential facility, and we also have an intensive outpatient program, so the women, once they complete treatment in residential, they step down to our intensive outpatient program. So our program is actually a one-year program, a combination of inpatient and outpatient. We provide all the tools necessary for women to not only break the cycles of addiction, but also of abuse, trauma, incarceration, poverty, homelessness. We provide on-site psychiatric services. We have 2 nurses on site. We have a job training program, on-site educational programming where women can women can participate in GED classes. We have computer programming classes. So life skills classes. So we don't just focus on addiction. We provide the whole person, right? And one of the things that we do really well is we provide an evidence-based treatment approach called dialectical behavioral therapy, and we received funding for this a few years ago from Pew. And all the therapists at our program are trained in providing dialectical behavioral therapy, which we call DBT.
Okay.
And the premise of DBT is to help women learn to manage their emotions, because most of the women react to their feelings and they don't think about the consequences of them. So basically, we're teaching women 4 skill sets, and it focuses on mindfulness, distress tolerance, emotion regulation, and interpersonal effectiveness skills. And Thelma has been taught DBT, and she uses it not only in her treatment, but also outside of treatment.
Thelma, I know as a peer specialist, you come from a history of being a person who has been active in the sense of your background, in the sense of women's issues. Could you share with us a little bit, or tell us a little bit about?
Well, I'm Thelma, and I'm a blessed recovering addict. I was in addiction for 25 years.
Oh, okay.
My mother came and got my children when they were young because I had a heavy drug addiction, and I stayed in that drug addiction for 25 years. In that addiction, my common law husband got killed behind the result with drugs. And when that happened, I really had got out of control with it because I didn't have no hope for life anymore. Then I had a friend that went into recovery, and I watched her change and become the person that she should have been. And I'll never forget it. She told me one day, she said, when you get ready to get yourself together, I got some place for you to go. And in January 2010, I asked her for help. and she introduced me to Interim House.
Oh, okay.
I called. I did a little intake over the phone. She gave me some information how to get funding for it. I called, and what I liked about it was, I never forget, it was a weekend, and she said, I want you to call every day, Saturday and Sunday. And I said, well, you're not going to be there. She said, doesn't matter, because somebody's going to be there to answer your call. And I did. That Monday I went in, and that was the best decision I had made in a long time about my life.
You know, what's, you know, I'm sure Rick can relate to this, and all of us, the four of us can relate to it. Recovery is a kind of an interesting experience for us all.
Yes, it is.
And it's interesting because no matter how many people will walk us to the place, it's going to take something else to get us in the place to do what we need to do. And you hear the story a lot, and you know, there's a little people out there talk about different ways people get into their recovery.
Right.
But in your case, it took you 25 years.
Yes, it did.
What kinds of things were you doing for 25 years that you got to a point where you said, I've had enough, I'm fed up with this life, and I need to do something about it? And you are doing wonderful work now. I know that.
Thank you very much. I was just out of control. I did what I wanted to do, when I wanted to do it, how I wanted to do it. Like I said, I thank God I never had an arrest record. I never got arrested in my addiction. I never got arrested for prostitution or anything like that. But I was
fortunate in that
yes,
sense.
and I was very blessed for that. But I was so out of control because, like, I lived on my own, so my house was out of control. It wasn't suit for my kids to live there. You understand what I'm saying? It just was drug infested.
Yeah.
You know, it was drugs 24/7.
Okay. How many children do you have?
I have 2 children now, 2 grown children and 2 grandchildren. But like, my life was just out of control. You know what I mean?
Let me kind of jump in here. For the viewers, now that you've been clean for some time, how long have you been clean now?
I've been clean for almost 3 years, January the 12th,
we
2010.
applaud you for that.
Thank you very much.
How do people look back at you now from the community where you came from, the folks that you use drugs with, the people that you interact? What do they see, or what do you say to them, or what do they say to you now that you're going on almost 3 years in recovery?
I have a lot of people that's very proud of me. My family's proud of me. And like, I don't forget where I come from. You know, I always remember, because I don't want to ever go back there again.
Yeah.
But like, I just tell them that it's a fight. I fight for my life every day.
Have you had any triggers, any urges, cravings, or desires when you go back to visit some of the places where you use that, or some of the people that you engage with during that time?
And that's a good question that you asked me. Not so much do I have triggers, but like I said, my common law husband got killed in my addiction, and that happened on July the 28th, 2007. So when that comes up, I get a little edgy. You understand what I'm saying? It brings back a lot of memories that I don't want to deal with. But having some skills being learned at Interim House, I learned to manage them feelings today. I learned to not think of doing the wrong thing, but makes me stronger to do the right thing.
That's great. And I think it's important that the viewers who are listening to your story understand that there's a way out.
Yes, it is.
You know, when people think that it's all falling apart, it's really all coming together.
Exactly.
And kudos go out to you, Kathy, with the great work that you're doing over there at Interim House. I can remember vividly my first job in recovery as a case manager by the state of Pennsylvania. Interim House was one of my caseloads.
Okay.
And I would go present case management services to the women over at Interim House. So you guys were building, when I say you guys, you women are building a wonderful a stadium of support for the women there. So again, I applaud you for that, because the way we are to these days, according to just the GA cuts, how has this affected your program and even you?
That's a good question.
Well, maybe you should explain what we mean by it's a relatively recent thing, and, and I know that it's created a lot of havoc in the field, in the sense of the kinds of services. And I kind of would like to couch it in the thought of when the cuts come, how do they affect women? Because it's women in recovery we're talking about today. And eventually, as we go down this road, what is unique about women as opposed to men? I mentioned it a little bit in the beginning. So you can talk about the GA cuts, but in the context of the impact it has on women's service. I know it's tremendous. I know from being on the Mayor's Commission on Drug and Alcohol, Executive Commission, I know that it's one of the most horrible things that have happened in the last year.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, first of all, Derrick, I want to thank you. It's great being up here with you. I remember you. I'll show our age. It was about 19 years ago when you first came to Interim House.
Yes.
We were a lot younger then.
Yes. Aren't we looking better?
Yeah,
now?
aren't we looking better? Yeah. So
that's because of years of recovery.
Right. That's right. That's right. Yeah. And I think what makes our program so unique and special is the fact that we are a trauma-informed program, and our emphasis is on safety and providing a nurturing, safe environment where we treat everybody with dignity and respect. And that women are safe, not just physically, but emotionally, morally, socially safe. There's a big emphasis on that. We believe that women can only heal in environments where they feel safe and that they have choices. And I think that's what makes our program so strong. But in regard to the GA cuts, talking about feeling safe,
general assistance
is as you all know, effective this past April 1st. The general assistance that women receive, which was about $205 a month, was eliminated, totally cut. So as of April 1, our women receive no cash, and they only receive food stamps and medical assistance. So right now, all the women in our program, about 95% of them are on general assistance. They have no income whatsoever. So it's been an emotional trauma, I would say, an emotional trauma that's been imposed upon them. And it's affecting our program financially because we now have to provide for all the personal needs of our women, the personal items, shoes, clothing, toiletries, hygiene products, things like that, which is fine, but that's why they're in residential. But for the women in our intensive outpatient program who are living in transitional housing programs or living on their own, some of them become homeless. They have no money to pay for their housing. They're preoccupied with where they're going to live, how they're going to get their money. They're struggling with the desire to return to to prostitution, just to exchange sex for money.
And I'm glad you put that point out because when you take away the funds, the cash assistance, most of the women, I'm quite sure you can respond to this, will normally go back to their source of the folks, or they call them Johns, or that kind of thing.
That's
ways of making money.
Well, they're back in the
sex
same
workers.
They're back in the same position they were when they were using. So now instead of like exhibiting behavior that was unhealthy to get money for drugs, now they're struggling with doing the same thing just to get money to survive, to live.
And if you think of it, the old adage that we always use about people, places, things, and situations need to change. With the removal of general assistance, the situations are now maybe drug-free, but a lot more threatening because they might have to revert back to some old behaviors that they were using originally maybe to embellish or continue their drug use, but now are using it just to live.
And general assistance was basically, it was a bridge to self-sufficiency. And it was temporary. And it was to help women, give them time to go, because most of our women started using drugs in relation to being abused, maybe as children, to numb the psychic pain, the emotional pain of being abused. They turned to drugs. So now they need time to heal. Trauma has an impact on your brain and your chemistry. You need time to heal psychically, to heal emotionally from the trauma. So they need time. They dropped out of school, maybe in 8th, 9th, 10th grade because of the trauma. They ended up being homeless or incarcerated. So they need time to go back to school, to learn a skill, to get a job. Right now we have all these women who've been cut off. Their bridge to self-sufficiency has been decimated, and there's no hope for them right now. It's really, really a struggle. It's taken away their hope. It's really, really, to me, shameful what the state has done to these women.
You know, when you were talking a little earlier, it sounded a little bit like the concept of safety and providing that kind of an environment. It was a little reminiscent of a conversation we had once before about domestic violence and what needs to happen in order to feel safe.
That's right.
And I didn't think of it that way, but as you were talking, I guess a lot of the women, I mean, I read the literature and I know it's in the literature, but it never dawned on me that Interim House really has wound up as a facility, really as a safe haven.
And we always call
women.
it
Is
that.
that,
And
is
that's
that
what
right?
we call it, a safe haven.
Is that
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And from your experience, when you went there, what happened? I mean, you walked
What
into the
happened?
facility.
Like I tell even my sisters from Interim House right today that's inpatient now.
That's the residential
Yes,
program.
it is.
Inpatient.
I came into recovery open-minded and willingness, not ready to be honest yet. But the minute I became honest, my growth process started. You know.
And honesty meant what to you? What
Honesty meant being honest with myself, because see, I can lie to you and everybody else, but at the end of the day, I have to sit with me. So being honest with myself, you know, about the lifestyle that I live, you know, things I did that I was ashamed of, you know, just being honest and ready to deal with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing some of that with us? What kind of honesty you went through? Or is
Like
that
I had to be
uncomfortable?
honest that I wasn't a good mother for my parents to have to come get my children and take them away from me because I was in a drug addiction. You know what I mean? Like my kids wanting to be with me, but I was so caught up in the addiction that I didn't have time for my children. You know, that's some shameful stuff to have to admit. You know what I mean? But
You can appreciate why you had low self-esteem.
yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Like I didn't think I was smart enough. I dropped out of school. You know what I mean? Like a lot of things I didn't have faith in myself with. You know, but as I began to do my recovery process, I got faith in myself and hope. You know, like people don't realize when, like you said, when you're in Interim House, it's that safe haven. Your recovery process starts the day you walk out that door, because you walk out that door on faith. You know, and you need to know that faith and the tools that you learned there is going to take you in your recovery.
You know, it's interesting. You know, we say these things in recovery.
Right.
You went from quote unquote, as they say in the streets, being a whore or a prostitute to a housewife.
Yes.
And you're married now.
Yes, I accomplished a lot of things in this process. With the encouragement of Interim House and giving me my self-esteem back as it grew and grew, I went back to school, high school. I went back to night school with the high school kids. Mind you, I'm 50 years old now.
You're young.
You know, and like I dealt with that because I wanted to accomplish some things in my life. I got my high school diploma. Like you said, I got married in this process. You know, it's just been.
And we're working you in the community.
Exactly.
That's right.
You know, so
That's right.
I became a productive society,
Right.
you know, society again. So
And now the first person that our women see who are newly entering our program, the first person they see when they
Is a
come
peer
through the door
specialist.
is Thelma.
Yes.
Because she is now a receptionist at the program. So
Yes.
she is
Wow.
the,
So-
she is the first person that they meet when they enter Interim House.
and I get to tell them, look, I was a client here. So if I can do it, I know you can do it.
What does a typical day look like? Well, what do you say to them, and what are the expectations? I mean, I know they come.
Yeah, they come from
Hurt.
all
I
walks
mean, I
of
know they
life,
come hurt.
and like you said, when we come in, at least I was spiritually bankrupt when I
Okay.
came in. I always welcome them. I let them know that I went through this process. You know what
Do you share
struggles that
part
I
of
had.
your life
Yes,
with
I
them?
do. I share my story with them. You know, and I always let them know that once you become a sister Interim House, you're a sister Interim House for life. That's what we always do.
Let me kind of ask Kathy this question in terms of for the viewers. How do a person get into Interim House? What's the application? What's the entry fee? How do folks find out about Interim House?
There's a number of ways that you could come to Interim House. You could refer yourself. You could come off the street, walk in, tell Thelma you're interested in becoming a resident. We'll have our admissions coordinator or staff meet with you right then on the spot. You don't have to come back for an interview. We'll grab you right then. You could.
That's very important,
Yes.
actually.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
You know, the immediacy
yes,
of
we-
the response, because if
yes.
you let them sit too long,
No, that's
when
what
I
we-
was running
Change
the
your
clinic,
mind.
they walk out
Yeah,
and
no,
they
that-
never come back.
No, that's right. That's
Yeah.
why we think it's so
Very
important.
important.
Once,
That's right.
I mean, we know how much courage it takes just to come through the door and ask for help. So
Exactly.
we want to just really we acknowledge them and tell them and applaud them for just having the courage
That's
to
right.
come
Right.
and just ask for help, because that's the first step. Admitting that you need some help. So we will have somebody talk to that person.
Yeah.
We'll do a brief screening form, ask them about their addiction, why they want
Right.
help. Then we'll ask them about if they're on medical assistance. If they don't have any insurance, we'll make some calls to BHSI, which is money that we get from the city.
Yes.
For uninsured women. We'll make a call, try to get them approved to come in. And sometimes we've actually admitted women the same day, if we
Sure.
can. If they don't have a place to stay, we help them find a safe place, or we'll let them stay for the night depending on the situation. So and then you could call, make an appointment, do it for, and if we don't feel like you don't have a drug addiction and you're not appropriate, then we always try to help the person find an appropriate place.
So you don't deal with a lot of co-occurring disorders? It sounds like you deal with DNA, drug and alcohol.
Well, we definitely have a lot of women who have both addiction and mental mental health issues. 99% of our women have both.
I would probably suggest to you that 99% of all the people who don't want to admit that they have more than just addiction have a mental health problem.
Yeah.
Because, how could you have an addiction without having some kind of mental problem? So, but you don't officially have a code.
We're not licensed.
You're not licensed
but
as a
we
code.
have a psychiatrist on staff who's there once a week.
Consulting psychiatrist.
Once a week, who's there for 8 hours. All our therapists are master's level. They're trained in evidence-based treatment modalities. So we do serve that population. But we are not licensed, but we do serve the co-occurring population. And a lot of our women also have serious medical issues as well because of their addictions. They come to us with like untreated gunshot wounds, broken bones that never were like set in a cast,
from abuse,
from abuse or running from somebody who was after them.
Indeed.
Horrific stories. I mean, the thing that amazes me the most about being the director there for so long, for 19 years, is the courage that every woman has when they come into the program. They have been through horrific, unconscionable trauma.
Dealing with men and women over the years in the sense of issues of recovery, I've often thought that the women have more of a difficult time getting to their recovery because they've basically been doing things that even men wouldn't necessarily be engaged in, and then you put the whole abuse, the domestic violence on top of it, and you wonder how they actually get to recovery.
It's true.
For the viewers, is there a number that you might want to give out for folks to get in touch with you at Interim House?
Sure, it's 215-849-4606, and they could just ask to speak to the admissions person, or just tell Thelma will answer the phone. You can just tell Thelma that you want to come in, you need help. Thelma will talk to you on the phone right there, get some information, and we'll make sure that you talk to somebody as soon as you call, and we'll get you help.
And we'll probably repeat this at the end of the session today, just to make sure that people need to get in touch, because I know there are not enough services in the city for women. Now, I know you have a lot of professional people you mentioned, but this whole movement toward the peer specialist and certified peer specialist, what other things are you doing as a peer specialist besides doing intake and being a friend, basically?
Well, I'm being a great supporter. You know what I mean? That's important to someone that's, I know I've been in their shoes before. I've sat in that spot, so I know how you feel. So the support that we try to give the girls that's in there now is very important. We not only can empathize, but we sympathize with them because we've been there.
How about running, you run a group?
Oh yeah, we do a beginners group, that's for outpatient. It's for the new ladies that come in from the community or either downstairs, to make them feel comfortable, to know that, we're there for you. You can talk to us, to feel comfortable talking to us, and to help them with their recovery.
Yeah, because it's really hard the first 30 days in treatment, so we have a peer specialist running a...
If you look at some of the studies, you lose everyone in about the first week.
Exactly,
That's right.
Exactly.
I mean, that's why I was saying, if you don't capture them real fast, they're going to walk out on you. And I think that's what the peer specialist movement really does, even though some of us, have been trained professionally.
Yeah, and we
have a tendency to say, well, I'll see you next week. Or I'll see you in an hour, and an hour you go out, they're not in the waiting room any longer. But the certified peer specialists, they really walk them, they hold them, and they they nurture them.
That's right.
And they do move them along. And
we have about 5 peer mentors at Interim House. Thelma actually was promoted from peer mentor to a receptionist now, so she's actually an employee of Interim House. But we have about 5 to 7 peer mentors now. And they are the eyes and ears that our women go to them during the day and say if they're struggling, say they feel like leaving or using, so they feel more comfortable with them. And then they're part of our treatment team, so they let us know what's going on. They really have their finger on the pulse of the program, and they're so valuable. I mean, although we have master's level clinicians, we have a nice mix of people, staff from all walks of life. So degree doesn't mean that
Right.
that
Oh,
you're
yeah,
any
no,
better
I
than
mean,
than
Right,
somebody. But
exactly.
yeah, but they actually Thelma, when you were a peer mentor, you did things like accompany women out to welfare,
Right.
or to court,
or the,
run
the
step
doctors
groups,
or whatever. Yeah,
because
definitely.
Now, I guess you hear a lot of stories that you kind of nod appropriately, you know, in the sense of, you know, you've heard it, you've been there, and you've seen that thing. Is there a couple different themes that, I mean, women in recovery? So, are there, from your perspective, are there a certain amount of themes that run through women in recovery that you hear a lot of? I mean, you know, we kind of reference some of them. I mean, like I know there's a lot of
Right.
domestic
The
violence,
domestic
which again
is
is different than the
Right.
men.
Right.
We know that the
Right.
alcohol, lower dosages will increase intoxication for the same body weight in men as opposed to women.
Right.
But what other things would you say are unique? Now, either one of you could answer this. Are unique to women, and why women have services? Why do women need service as opposed to men? I mean, I kind of know the answer, but you know. But I was curious from your perspective. Just like, you know, we have you know, Hispanic services, and we have specialized services, the LGBT community.
Right.
But you know, I'm wondering, when you sit there, what would be unique if you were in a male facility as opposed to a female facility? Would you
I think women beat themselves up more than a man does in an addiction. You understand what I'm saying? Because like a man has this standard about him, like, you know, whatever he does, he's going to be a man. But a woman, like, she'll degrade herself and her body to where it makes her less than a woman or a person. So when they tell me that women do recover, and I see it, and I'm one of the women that are recovering, it amazes me. Because we do go through a lot of struggles out there. You know what I mean? So.
And you mentioned something earlier about the shame.
Yeah,
I
the
think
shame
there's
and the guilt.
a lot of shame that our
That's
women
what kept
feel.
me out there so long.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about that is that when you get a group of women together and they break through, sharing that stuff that's been killing them,
Right.
and hear other women share,
Right.
it gives them a sense of relief
And hope.
And that whole therapeutic community of women sharing, I've been molested, or incest, and all
Right.
these other things that they haven't been able to regurgitate. And they come into interim house, and other women say, "Well, I've done this and I've done that."
Right.
That has to be
Right.
a door opening.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
for
you know you're
women.
not alone.
Definitely.
You know.
But let me ask you this, Kathy. In your 19 years of being there, have you seen a difference in age rangings or different drug use for the women that are coming into interim house?
Yeah, it has changed. It fluctuates. Years ago, we didn't get a lot of women from the criminal justice system. Now about 70% of our women come from the criminal justice system. The drug use years ago was crack cocaine and alcohol. Now we're seeing more heroin,
Right.
PCP, opiates abuse. And
So it kind of mimics
so it-
the male side of
I
the
think
counter in the
right.
sense of
Yeah.
the drugs of use
Right.
Over time. I'm sure in the
Definitely.
80s it was cocaine, and then
Yep, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But more
Yeah.
imprisonment, more incarceration.
Yes.
More
Right.
incarceration. Definitely more incarceration.
well, we can get into all that. We've had many sessions
Yeah,
with people. I don't know of a recovering person who hasn't done
They've been-
some time
Right, right,
and being
yeah.
incarcerated, and
And if
most
they
of
haven't, they
them-
haven't got caught.
And they haven't got caught. And most of them don't seem to get a tremendous amount of benefit out of the experience because it's
Yeah.
punitive and not rehabilitated, even
Right.
though they talk like they are.
Well, years ago, the Riverside Correctional Facility,
Yes, I
what we
remember
used to-
Riverside.
that
Yeah,
had
I remember Riverside.
a wonderful, wonderful options unit
That
that
was
was
a
run by
great one.
Debbie Lee, and it was a wonderful
Yeah.
program. And the women who came from that unit had about a 90% success rate when they came to our program
Right.
because they got the treatment behind the walls. That is something so critical that I wish there
Now
were
they
more
closed that
treatment.
down.
I know, but we've seen a big difference.
Yeah.
Because when women came from that, they were already prepared for treatment, and they were so much more successful than the women who didn't come from that unit. If I had all the money in the world, I would fund prisons to have drug treatment
Yeah,
programs
options.
behind the walls, the options unit. Like
Yeah.
I said, it was a
No,
wonderful,
that was a good
wonderful,
options unit.
wonderful
It was.
program.
Very successful. I
Very
remember that
successful.
one.
I don't know why it was defunded, but it was a great program.
Yeah, well.
Wow. So here you are, you're married, you're paying FICA, your
Yeah.
taxes taken out.
Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
Yes.
That's great.
And because of the GA, which was the
Yeah,
bridge
what
to
was it?
self-sufficiency,
Exactly.
Thelma's
She was
a
able to
perfect
do it.
example
Yes.
of how GA works.
Yeah.
Yes, it
Why
does
it
work
works.
because it's not like we want to depend on it for the rest of our
Right.
life. We need it for a temporary help situation.
Right.
You know what I mean? And yeah, like Ms. Kathy said, it's a lot of girls struggling with that right now. Like, where's
Right.
my next dollar going to come from?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
we have people in transitional. They
Right.
can't pay their rent. And it's crazy because the people there are telling them, listen, well, you got 30 days to find a place to live.
Yep.
And then when you go to the next phase, you still got to pay your rent. So,
Yeah,
it's hard.
And they
It's
only have
really
9,
hard. It's
and
hard.
even the housing for the city, the funding's been reduced from the state
Yeah.
for the housing program, so they only get 90 days in a
Right.
transition,
As a transitional, yeah.
supported housing program. Then after 90 days, and a lot of our women, the economy is so bad now, it's hard for anybody to get a job who has a lot of skills and education. If you don't have a high school diploma and you have limited social skills, no employment history, you're really stuck.
You know what I'm finding here in the city of Philadelphia? Philadelphia has become the mecca for recovery. And women migrate here. Not only men, but women as well come here to this great city for treatment and recovery. Are you seeing a lot of that in your program, women coming in from down south in New York, Jersey,
Yes, we've
Delaware,
had
Baltimore?
Yes, we're having
Baltimore's
people
a
come and maybe they're moving in with relatives who live in the city.
Indeed.
And then they're coming to
In
our
order to
attention.
qualify for-
Yes,
Yeah.
because
What,
they're
90
residents.
days?
Because they have
You're
to be a
resident,
resident.
remember?
Yes.
They have to do
yes,
90
we
days
are.
to get the qualifications
Yes.
in.
No, we're definitely blessed in the city.
Yes.
And I tell the women all the time, they're really fortunate to have a program like Interim House.
Yes.
Because just take advantage of it, because you never know what tomorrow's going to bring. But it's
Now,
a wonderful program.
Do you have special, unique services there? For example, when I say special, unique services, I mean I know I know you have your residential program, and I know you have intensive outpatient, but within the community of women, do you have like a Latino population or a Hispanic population? Do you have an LGBT community that you deal with? Is there a group of people who are maybe on methadone? I mean, I don't know. I mean, when you look at the over time and you look at the specialized services, I mean, I know there are the generic services that we all talk about, the general outpatient, et cetera, but as you watch women move through Interim House, do they come through with groups of different things that you have to
we
set
have
up
some women
special?
who are maybe lesbian or bisexual. So we have a core woman who then they may go to the gay and lesbian meeting on Monday night down the city. So they will go to that meeting.
You mean the meeting outside?
Outside of the program, right? And then we tailor treatment based on the individual. If we have a Latino woman, we have a therapist who's bilingual. But just one. So, but basically, it's a women's program, and we provide like the different types of treatment or programs we provide within our framework. We have a biking program through Gearing Up. So the women actually ride bikes 3 times a week. They go out on bike rides, and once they get 100 miles, they're actually eligible to build their own bike through Neighborhood Bike Works.
Wow.
We have a therapeutic knitting program where we have volunteers from the community that come in once a week, and we have a social worker, Kathy Duffy, who runs that program. Every woman in the program who comes to the program leaves knowing how to knit. They've knit sweaters and scarves for their
Men
kids.
should learn that.
Yeah, and it's and it's a wonderful coping skill.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's a great. We have the job training and education component. We have an on-site. We have tutors. We have tutors from St. Joe's University that come in from the Faith and Social Justice program. We have 3 teachers. We have a part-time teacher and outpatient who prepares a woman to get their GED and then eventually come to community college. We have dance and fitness class. We have
gardening.
we have a gardening program.
Yeah.
We do some
have gardening
internships with
program.
you. I know that.
Yeah, we take on
With
interns.
students from the college.
Right. And again, the dialectical behavioral therapy piece, which again, Thelma, you could
lifesaver.
talk about
That's a
how that has
lifesaver.
helped you. It actually helps.
Now
Reduce-
see, the directors here telling you about all these different services that you have. Which ones did you find the most helpful?
For me, I took advantage of just about everything I needed to take advantage of. I did the biking program. I got the 100 miles. I built my bike. I learned how to knit.
You still have your bike?
I still have my bike right to the day. Sure. I haven't rode it lately, but I still have my bike.
Can I borrow it?
You
gotta
know,
keep riding, you know.
And she talks about like all these programs, like the motivation that you only going to get what you put into a program, and I got all I needed to get. With the GED program, me going to school 2 nights a week, it encouraged me to go back to school and get the high school diploma. Like
great.
I just took advantage of everything I needed to better my life. So
you know what's interesting is that, and it's partly the city pushing this. And I must say, Dr. Evans, they do wonderful work with that new recovery, resilience, transformation stuff. But what's important about it is it's opened up the arena of activities that help and facilitate health. It's
Yeah.
much more a broad
Yeah.
thought as to how one gets healthy.
Right,
And-
exactly.
Right.
And it seems to rely increasingly on this whole wellness kind of
Right.
Exactly.
activity.
Exactly.
You know, like yoga and
Right.
meditation is
Mhm.
being
We have
integrated
that.
into a lot of the
Yeah, we
programs.
have
That's right.
that.
Matter of fact, we had
Yeah.
integrated into our program here at the college.
Right.
If you take the faith and spirituality class, in that class are yoga, meditation,
That's
you know,
right.
things that are expanding the vision of how people continue
Right.
to maintain their health.
Yeah. It's
Right.
getting
And I see that in your program
Yes,
too, and we see it
definitely.
with the city.
Yeah.
And it obviously is working for
Yes,
you.
it is.
It
Yes, it
seems
is.
to be something, as
Definitely.
opposed to just going in and talking to someone for 50 minutes and seeing you next week.
Right.
Or,
Right.
Exactly.
or just
Right.
going to an AA meeting that
That's
happens
right.
to
Right,
be particularly
exactly,
helpful to
yeah.
you.
Right.
They're all very helpful. I'm not arguing that.
Right.
But it's the expansive-ness that I think
No, you're
really
right. And-
leads to health.
And
don't you
talk
think?
therapy doesn't always work for everybody,
Yes,
especially
very
if
true.
trauma, the impact it has physiologically on the brain. The verbal part of the brain goes black, goes dark, and it's really hard to articulate what happened. So it's important to provide, like we have 2 art therapists. We provide art therapy because then you're able to process what happened better. Because again, it's hard to articulate what happened. And and again, we provide the meditation and yoga.
right.
We provide that as well.
You know, she kind of mentioned in the beginning of the show your ex-husband or something that was
Got
murdered.
killed in my
Yeah.
addiction. He sure did.
Right, in your addiction. And I'm quite sure you utilized some of the tools that you learned at
Yeah,
Interim
I had
House
to. I had to
deal with
because
that.
like she just said, like we stuff a lot of our hurt, and I had so much stuffed into me, and just bringing it up and learning how to deal with it made me make better decisions. Because like when I'm hurting, I want to medicate it. You know,
Yeah.
I want to go outside of myself. I don't
Right.
want to deal with that. So with the tools that we learned, the DBT,
DBT.
was very important.
Yeah. Talk about some of the
The
skills.
dialectic
how
behavior,
you
the
use that.
interpersonal effectiveness, the stress tolerance. Like, for me, I'm not one who likes to deal with pain. You know what I mean? My tolerance is very low. But with the skills I learned,
Like what kind of skills could you?
radical acceptance.
Radical
Some things I
acceptance?
cannot change.
Yeah, true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm powerless over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I need to have some radical.
Although we would love to change.
Right.
Yeah, right.
I have to accept it.
Right.
You know, I have to accept it
Yeah.
no matter what.
It's there.
Staying in my wise mind at all times. You know, sometimes things might not go my way,
Right.
and I might want to act out on the emotions
Right.
or the reasonable mind. But if I kind of balance it out and stay in my wise mind, it's gonna be okay.
These are all DBT concepts.
These are
Yes.
Wise
Yeah,
mind,
wise mind, I like it.
reasonable
Yeah,
mind,
the wise mind.
wise mind.
The wise mind keeps me from making better decisions about my life every day, you know.
These
And I
are
always
things
want to
that-
try to stay there. Sometimes I can get in the emotional mind,
Right.
in the reasonable mind. But
It's DBT.
that's
Yeah.
DBT
Yeah.
stuff. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And like it's crazy because right to the day, that DBT skill, even my therapist tells me, I use it too.
Yes.
Yes, we.
Well, you know, when we think about organizing our lives and having a structure that we organize it around, whether it be DBT or whatever,
whatever.
I think it's a wonderful thought. But that's actually what defines some of us as being healthy and some of us as being sick.
Right, exactly.
That we can get through stressful events
Right.
and still realize that we're a good person.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Get
That's
on the
right.
other side.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's the skills that you need to get
Exactly.
Yes.
in order to offset your addiction.
Right.
Right.
Or
That's right.
your anxiety.
Right.
I
Or
mean, there are
whatever.
principles that really everyone
That's
should
true.
be practiced. I've often said that the 12-step program is good for everybody.
It is.
Exactly.
It
I
is.
mean, you know,
Indeed.
think
Yeah.
about it.
It is.
Giving it up to God.
It's a
That's
wonderful.
right.
program.
Doing inventory work.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, think about that.
Make
Doing
amends.
inventory
Yeah.
work.
Exactly.
Make amends.
Yeah, making
Yeah.
amends.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Getting
Yep.
into a group of people and
Right.
sharing your life. You know,
Yeah.
humanizing your shadow, as we say in,
Right.
in the Jungian sense. That's what you're doing, really.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're realizing that you're not going to be threatened by your own shadow.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think
Exactly.
what helps in our program is DBT is used by the therapist, by everybody there. We share how we use it, so they know we're no different than the women who come to our program. We all have the
Indeed.
same feelings. We all have the same emotions.
Right.
We all struggle with universal universal feelings, and we know that feelings rise and fall as long as you don't attach danger. That it's okay. You can tolerate these feelings. You don't have to use over them. But I think it's a collaborative model. And I think it helps that your therapist says, "This is how I've used it," and it just takes away the shame.
Yeah, I know that you've tried to attempt to get clean or get in recovery before, correct?
Actually, this is my first time in recovery.
This is your first time?
First time attempt in recovery.
Wow.
Like, I never wanted to admit that I had a problem.
So you were strong in your addiction.
20, what'd you say?
25 years.
Right.
Listen, I was in deep. So,
Deep in there. She didn't even try to come out.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. And it's crazy that, and that's how it was. Like, I didn't really want to come out because I was comfortable where I was at. But, like, that, when you spiritually bankrupt like that and you just can't go no further to the bottom.
Well, we're talking about bottoms. Bottoms kind of relate to a basement.
Right.
But then there's sub-basements. And
I was there. I was there.
So my question to you is, and you have 2 kids, and it's something that I do in terms of a lecture series to get people to understand that life will show up without your approval.
Of course.
Your 2 kids. If they call now and said that your 2 kids died in a fire, can you get through that and don't use?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can, because I have tools today. They get me through them uncomfortable feelings, them feelings I don't want to deal with. I have people in my life that will help me through situations that I can't manage myself. So that's the strength that I have built up today to help me through situations where, as though, in a couple 24 hours ago, I would have used over in a heartbeat. So it's important, and we're trying to get people to understand that staying clean on sheer willpower is a temporary solution for a lifetime problem. Yes, it is.
With all the things that you've been afforded, the trainings and support mechanisms, when life shows up, you have something to combat that with. So that's great.
Do you think that the training that you went through at Interim House is particularly geared toward or beneficial to women only, or do you think it's to men and women? Or do they have different sets of issues that need to be dealt with?
I think women do have different sets of issues because it's hard for us to pick our self-esteem back up on our own. We need that boost. But it could be benefits for men too. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't say just for women.
But right now it seems to be
it's
consistent in
the
Interim
women.
House.
Right. Because I think a lot of times women would feel uncomfortable speaking about certain things that have happened in their past in front of men, like maybe unwanted pregnancies or
the prostitution.
I wasn't thinking of mixing the groups.
Oh, right. No, okay.
I totally agree with you
but
that
I think
women need to be with women
and
certain issues. And men sometimes say the wackiest things to women.
But I think men could definitely
benefit. But I was saying if men
from
had a men's group, would this benefit them?
Definitely.
I think it
would.
Yes,
definitely.
I would suggest that it happens.
I think
Matter of fact, can I come over and take the DVT class?
Sure.
You can, but you're the only man there.
Radical acceptance.
There you go.
And I'm sure the women need to work out some things with men anyway.
Right.
We'll work it out.
I've been wanting to tell you.
Yeah.
That's great.
So are you living on the premises now?
Actually, like I said, with a lot of hard work, I did the inpatient. I did the outpatient. I went to transitional.
Okay.
I have my own place.
Oh,
I paid my own rent.
Great.
But that came from hard work. Like, nothing's going to come immediately. You have to stick and stay, work hard, accept some stuff, and deal with situations, So, it works.
Walk us through a normal day at Interim House if a woman comes in off the street or, this is her first day there or first week there. Walk us through a normal day there at Interim House.
Okay, a normal day. We'll have a client come in. She'll do her intake. We'll feed her. We'll welcome her. And she has a lot of paperwork to do.
When you say feed her, it's because they're obviously very hungry.
Yes, because we know
important issue.
Yeah,
exactly.
Definitely.
We know what it's like to be on the streets. Yes, we definitely
we
don't like
actually
to
ask
go to the
them.
streets. So we welcome them with open arms. You know what I mean?
So you go right to the issue of Maslow. Food,
clothing,
food,
love,
shelter,
warmth. We give it to them. I say by the end of that day,
Then they sleep.
They sleep, you know,
So-
and they remember.
So now take us to the next day.
Yeah, like the next
Okay,
week maybe.
so
yeah.
the next week, okay, she's getting dug in groups. She's getting the therapeutic she needs. She's one-on-one with a therapist. She's getting the love she needs from the community, from the peer mentors, from the therapists, from the case managers, to everybody.
And how about when she wakes up? What's the first thing?
When she wakes up, okay, we have okay, you have your breakfast. By 8 o'clock, you're doing your chore. Everybody gets the IT.
Meditation.
Meditation. We have like the art therapy. We have DBT classes. We have SAGE. That's a very good class that intertwines with the DBT. We have community meetings.
So there's something structured every
But
something
it's
structured.
structured every hour. Definitely. We have
Right.
the relapse prevention. You have recovery management. It's all kind of groups. All kind of groups going on.
Do you do any like if a woman comes in and she's there for a couple of days to say this is all like bull, you know, I'm out of here, and they leave, and I'm assuming that does happen.
Yes,
it
it
happens
does.
every
Never.
place.
Yeah.
What, I can't take it. I can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
This is too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Do you try to capture them again, or do you just kind of let them go and then say, well, maybe when they're ready they'll come back? Or do you do
a little bit of both.
A little bit of
We
both,
try
okay.
to validate their feelings and say it's normal to feel this way. You're gonna, and we actually say you may feel like you want to leave your first, few days here, if that comes up. So we already tell them you're gonna feel like you're gonna want to leave. When that does come up, talk to somebody. It's okay. It's normal.
Yeah.
So we try to prevent that. But
Yeah.
if they do leave, we would welcome them back, or if they went home, we would call the home, or if they're staying with their family member, call them and say, what's
Try
going
and
on.
connect
Try to
with them in that way,
reconnect. So we try to get them back.
What happens, and I'm quite sure this works very well, with the alumni coming back, the women who've graduated from the program coming back, sharing with the newer women, listen, I have my own home. I'm employed now. I'm in school now. That has to be a ray of hope.
It is.
And I think that's so important. You guys done great work in terms of you're being a resident. Now you're employed there. That's
Right.
gotta be a ray of hope for the women that
it
are
does.
coming in.
A
like,
lot of the women say, I want to be what Thelma is. I want to
Right.
be a peer mentor.
Right.
How can I do this?
Yeah.
So
And-
they're in their first month, and they already want to. They already see that there's
If they can do
there's
it.
a path for them.
Sure.
so what are your goals now? What's your
My
dreams
goals
now?
is like I want to go to college now. I missed the opportunity, but then again, someone told me it's my opportunity right now. Like it wasn't meant for me back then, but it's my opportunity now. So I'm looking for more and bigger and better things.
Great.
Yes.
Great. How do you interact now with your kids? Your
Me and
kids
my
gotta
kids
be
have
like,
a wonderful relationship. Like my kids are so proud of me, even though they're grown. Like
How old are your kids now?
I have a 31 and a 28-year-old, and I have 2 grandkids. And it's crazy because I was expecting a little animosity or a little hostile from my children, my family, but it's been none of that.
But there was a lot when you were in your
Of course,
in your
of
addiction.
course.
And when did it start to turn? To be
I
more
think it
positive?
started to turn to be more positive when I called my mother and told her I was in the rehab.
Oh,
You understand what I'm saying? Because I didn't want to tell nobody that I was going because, we say we're going to do an addiction, but we never do it. So I just went on and did it. And then I just gave them the aftermath. And when I called my mom and told her that I was in a rehab, she was very, very relieved because she lost a lot of sleepless nights worrying about me out
she was
there.
afraid she was going to lose you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's interesting that you only had one experience
Yeah.
because what you hear, at least when we were treating people in
Yeah.
recovery, they relapse so much that when they
Okay.
call their parents say, "Oh yeah, here it goes
Yeah,
again."
right.
It's the fifth one.
Right.
And
It's
like, when are you
true.
going to get it together?
Right,
And
right.
they actually get angry at them for the
Yeah.
multiple relapse. I mean,
Yeah.
we see that all the time. In your case, you're unique in that sense.
She
because
is.
Most
Yes.
You've
recovery
been locked
Yes.
out.
Thank you.
Go
No
through-
arrest
She is
records.
unique.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
They got
Thank you.
normally.
Sure you was getting high.
Yeah.
How
Yes,
often
I
they-
would listen.
I mean, how
Right,
often have we
right.
seen the rap sheets
24/7.
and you roll it
Yeah.
out? You
Yeah.
can literally walk on it.
Right.
It's so long. The
Right.
rap sheets
Right,
that they have.
Right.
And in your case, though, you're different in your addiction because you've only had one experience that turned you around. Normally, people have multiple experiences. They go in and out of their recovery for
Yeah,
quite,
you're right.
I mean, for quite a few years. And somewhere around 35 or 40, early 40s, they start to get it together because, life starts to become much more difficult to stay high.
Exactly.
And the kids are younger.
That's right.
And,
That's right.
and you say, well, gee, I don't recuperate as fast
Exactly.
as I used to.
Right.
But you were fortunate in that, fortunate in that sense. I've often thought that, when we talk about addiction and recovery, I've often said to myself that but for your addiction, you wouldn't be the person
I
you
am
are
today.
today.
Exactly.
So there's
That's
a good
right.
thing about your addiction that people, everyone wants to talk about addiction like negative. The reality of life is that it took that experience
to get me
to get you here.
Exactly.
And you might not ever gotten here without
that experience.
Without that experience. So I tend to see it in some ways both a positive and a negative.
That's right.
But if we're going to practice, positive therapy, if they say, and have a positive learning experience, everything that happens to us in our life leads to something good.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree.
I agree with
Otherwise,
that.
it just keeps leading to evil.
I agree with that.
And the way you get there is you humanize your shadow.
Okay.
You talk to people about all of these fears that you have, and eventually the shadow doesn't control you anymore.
Exactly.
It's called humanizing the shadow, and that's actually
true.
what appears to be happening.
You bring it to the
To
light.
good people with good experiences, that they humanize it and they move on. When you think, that's.
I agree with you.
I mean, it's really.
It dies at the light of exposure.
Yeah, it really
Right.
works.
That's right.
So when these venues are developed to even increase your self-esteem and let you know you're on the right path. No looking back.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So again, I applaud you for that.
Thank
Going
you.
on 3 years.
Yes.
High school diploma, job, husband, wife. Can we borrow $20?
Wow. Okay.
And sometimes people give them the 20.
Okay.
No, I don't know if anyone ever gives them the 20, to be honest.
All
with you.
right.
So now, do you have brothers and sisters, and
I'm the baby of 3 girls.
are any of them using?
Well, my older sister was never in addiction. My middle sister, we used to get high together, but she stopped like
On her own?
way before on her own, way before I did. But like I said,
So you
they
have
never gave up on me.
You have this family, almost genetic history that allows people to stop.
Right. Right.
One
yeah,
time
that could
or-
just
One
stop.
time
Stop.
and
Right.
stop.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
That's a
Actually.
good thing.
I joke when I say genetic. I don't know
yeah.
if it is.
That's a good
But
thing.
the reality is that it's unique that you could do that. I mean, and your sister did it also.
Right.
So
I was thinking about during your whole time of using, getting in and out of cars of different men that you've never seen before. Have you had any life-threatening situations?
Actually, I have to say no because, like I said, I wasn't really into prostitution because when you have your own house, I basically did what I wanted to do in that house. Like, I would go get prostitutes to be with guys. But me personally, I never had to do it.
Yeah.
I never had to stand on corners and jumping out of cars and risking my life like that. But I've watched other people do it.
and you were getting people for
And I was
Yeah.
getting people to do it. So I was just as bad as they were, but not on hand sight as they were doing. But I watched some pretty bad things happen. I watched girls get beat up and thrown out of cars and stuff like that. And I just thank God that it wasn't me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I really do.
You are unique, and if you smoke crack, you are unique. If you never
And I smoked
really
a lot of that.
experienced
Yes, I did
some
a lot
of
of
those
that.
things there,
Definitely.
even down to those levels of prostitution. Now you might not have been in cars but you had a house.
Exactly. So I
you was like a
condoned
madam
that.
in your house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I condoned
Yeah.
that. Exactly. I
Yeah.
condoned that. So I was just as bad.
now most madams get paid.
That's why I want
Well,
$20.
Did you? What were you? Did you get drugs? I guess. Or
Drugs and
Yeah,
money,
yeah, that's what you
but I'm an addict, so I would prefer the
Yeah.
drugs.
did you prefer the drugs?
Yeah.
Right.
So in a
Definitely.
sense, you were providing a service.
Exactly.
It was
Yes.
hotel accommodated.
Right. Exactly.
And
exactly.
your cut was the cut.
Yeah, right.
the
I want
drugs.
mine's first, and then you do what you got
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
So again, you get involved in a lot of crazy things
things,
when
exactly.
you're in your addiction.
That's like
and
the opposite show we had.
Fortunately, you were able to avoid
The real crazy stuff.
and the criminal justice system.
Yes, and that was definitely a blessing because, like I said, I was in addiction for 25 years, and if I could have stayed out there maybe just one more minute, I would have had a criminal record. You know what I mean?
Take us to that last day before you transitioning over?
That last day, I can remember it very vividly because, like I said, a friend of mine that was in Interim House introduced me to it. I got high for that last night, and I kept telling myself that at 12 o'clock I was going to shut it down because I had an appointment to make that I wanted to make. I made that appointment to my girlfriend's house. I spent the night. She fed me. I got a good night's sleep. We washed all my clothes up. We packed my bag. And I actually caught the bus to Interim House.
Oh, really?
I caught the 23 and H, walked down the hill, and I made it to Interim House.
What were your drugs of your use?
Crack cocaine. And I was a drinker.
And a drinker.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, again, I would say it openly, you are unique.
Thank you.
To not be faced with incarceration, all those things, those are the contributing factors to most
to
women.
Like the cornerstones of transitions.
Yeah.
So you're doing good, man.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All with the help
And
of
most of
Interim
the women
House.
that you speak to at Interim House, you don't feel uncomfortable in sharing that experience, and they can connect to you in the
No, I
sense
don't,
as a peer
because
specialist.
Like I said, my story might just help somebody one day.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does.
I want to do that, and I have to give it back or enough to keep it.
Right. It's part of the steps too. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
definitely.
Well, you are unique in the sense of I don't know whether I mean maybe both of you can answer this. Is that from your experience a typical women in recovery pattern? I suspect it's not. Or is there a different pattern than this pattern that you would see for women in particular?
I would say Thelma's story is atypical, not
Okay.
typical.
Okay.
But, however,
Some of her
the
experiences are
last few
typical.
for the last few years, we've actually had women who've the first time and have made it. Actually,
really?
even
Younger?
younger even. So it's happening more than it had in the past. I see it happening more.
Yeah.
So,
it's
over the years,
but over the years, it's been multiple failures in treatment, but at least each time they've been in treatment, they've gotten something. A seed has been planted. But a lot of the women who come to Interim House have had 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 times in various treatment programs.
Yeah,
and we
indeed.
say, and I always say, make this your last one.
That's right.
This could be your last one.
Good.
So
Well,
that's
maybe that's a good way to end the show today.
yeah, okay.
It's their last one.
It's their last
Right,
one. Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right.
That's, the end of the line.
The last stop.
The last stop, yeah.
Well, we've kind of come to the end of the show, and I really want to thank both of you, both myself and Rick.
Thank
want to
you.
thank both of you
Thanks.
for talking
Yeah.
about your life and sharing with us about Interim House.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And I want you to at least, right before I sign off, as they say, tell us, Interim House and the address and how people can get in touch with you if they wanted to.
Sure. The address of Interim House is 333 West Upsall Street. We're located in West Mount Airy section of Philadelphia. The phone number is 215-849-4606. And we also have a website. It's www.interimhouse.org. You can check us out on the website to learn more about our program as well.
Great facility.
Yeah.
Wonderful
Thank you.
women's facility.
Thank you.
You have been watching the Tapestry of Life at CCP TV, the educational channel for Community College of Philadelphia. I am Dr. Pascal Scoles, Professor of Behavioral Health and Human Services. For more information, please contact the college. See you next time. Bye.